what is a visual abstract? I think it's pretty clear in the term itself. It is usually a concise summary of the main findings of the article. And it has personalized graphs, tables, and figures that you can put into the visual abstract itself. Now, these are some key things to consider. A visual abstract is usually very brief. There are about 5 to 7 sentences in the whole entire graphic, with each sentence not going over 15 words. There should be a lot of white space in the visual abstract itself so that the audience can have a lot of time to consider what it is that the message that they're taking in. And of course, in terms of the visual data, this is supposed to represent something that is the result or the conclusion of the study itself. And at the bottom, you'll see that there is a section for the citation, the title, and the copyright line. Now, this is super important because while the visual abstract may not have the full title of your article itself, this section down here at the bottom definitely will, and it'll be able to tell everybody where they can find the article if they choose to search for it on Google Scholar or any other search engine they find. The next one is, why do we even use a visual abstract? What's the purpose? And there are multiple reasons to produce one, to share your research, to maximize visibility, and most notably on social media. The bulk of the research done on visual abstracts goes back to one author, Dr. Andrew Ibrahim. He did a study for Annals of Surgery in 2017 on 22 articles, and each of these articles were tweeted once without the visual abstract and then again with the visual abstract. The tweet that had the visual abstract was shared 8 more times than the tweet without the visual abstract that only included a link to the article. Other studies have been done with varying results. For example, for one done by Journal of Plastic, Reconstructive, and Aesthetic Surgery, they showed that the articles were read at least 2 times more when tweeted with a visual abstract. I think this goes to show that a lot of the engagement surrounded through visual abstracts is really helpful to kind of maximize the discussion around the scientific community. Now we're going into who creates a visual abstract. A bulk of the time, authors will be asked to create the visual abstract. Sometimes an editor may reach out to an author with support, so either someone on the journal itself who is a social media manager. If the author does not have this kind of help, they're also free to ask their interns or their fellows, or ask a third-party service to help them create the visual abstract or to create it fully. And this kind of goes into, when should we create a visual abstract? A visual abstract is created when it's directed in the submission guidelines. So before you even start looking at what specifications you might need for a visual abstract, check the submission guidelines. Some journals may require it at submission, journals like Cell Press. Most journals will require it either at the accepted manuscript stage, at a revision stage, or sometimes also after publication, because we don't know exactly if the visual abstracts will be in the articles themselves or just shared on social media. It's always crucial to check the submission guidelines. And here are just some tools that Ginny and I pulled up to help you create the visual abstract itself. Now, a lot of these visual abstracts will be created on a PowerPoint slide, so that you can read them from left to right or top to bottom. And out of these, I really recommend the Noun Project if you are going to use PowerPoint. The Noun Project has almost every icon that you can think of, and you really just have to be creative about what you're exactly trying to show. All of the other ones on this list, like Mind the Graph, Canva, Easily, Infogram, these are usually ones that you choose to do on the platform itself. So not on PowerPoint, but you're using a dedicated template on these other websites. And now that I've gone over how to create a visual abstract and what's the value of it, I'm going to pass this over on to Ginny, who will go over visual abstracts in practice.
Ginny, you're on mute.
Thank you, Yingzi. Michelle, thank you very much. So this is segment 2, visual abstracts in practice. And so I'm just going to talk about how we create them, what makes a perfect visual abstract, how to prepare a short narrative, and where they're being published, used, or shared. So how do we create it? The most common type is just using PowerPoint. When you look at the most common format and you're looking at the graphics that go into PowerPoint, some people use the tools that are inherent in PowerPoint templates. Some people decide that they want to incorporate their graphics from their journal article. And the key components, as Michelle showed an outline or a template on her original slide, the title or the article title is really important. Some people shorten it as a header. Some people want to include the full article title so it's easier to identify the article in search. The key thing is to try to make everything as short as possible. The main section should always be more visual representation than text. And when you're thinking about the way your article is structured, you typically want to look at the methods, the intervention, the control, and the outcomes and results. And always include a conclusion statement. Some authors I know, when thinking about creating a visual abstract, will only put a part of a conclusion, kind of tantalizing the reader when it's shared on social media to go and search out the full article. And then, of course, as Michelle noted on her template, it's really important to always list your name and all your author names on somewhere on the visual abstract. Again, this is a way to engage further with the scientific community. So you may have people that come to you with questions following the distribution of the visual abstract. So you really want to make sure your name is on there. And if you have social media handles or the journal has social media handles, it's important to put that. I've also listed article citation and the digital object identifier number. That is usually done after, if your visual abstract is called for after your article is published. So if you already know, for example, the digital object identifier, and that's already been appended to your article, it's great to put that on there because, again, it makes it so much easier for people to find your original article. And when thinking about creating the visual abstract, you really want to think about the image size. As Michelle noted, the submission guidelines or instructions for authors are really key. I think every journal has a different, requirement on image size. There's typically a 16:9 ratio. The most important thing here is the high resolution image. When thinking about those visual abstracts, you want to think about almost making sure that the requirements that you have for submitting your article and the graphics in the article, that you're using that same high resolution image. And then, again, if you want to think about using other programs, as Michelle mentioned, there are a number out there, and the Noun Project, for example, is free. You want to think about the minimum pixel size. And again, this is for making sure that the visual abstract renders well on multiple platforms. And then the last thing is thinking about even just the typeface, the fonts that you use on the visual abstract. They should be easy to read. Arial and Calibri are usually the two most common used. You could also use Times or Courier. The important thing here is not to make your text too small because it could be shared on social media programs and you want it to stand out. And so I typically like to use 18 point size, but you can go as small as 12. I wouldn't recommend going any lower than that. So this is just an example of what makes a perfect visual abstract. And the nice thing about this is it shows the article title at the top left. You can see that arrow. So in this case, this is for a journal called KI Reports with the International Society of Nephrology. And the full article title is listed here. The journal is at the bottom left-hand corner of the visual abstract. You can see the author name, the person who created the visual abstract, and the Twitter handle. And then over on the right-hand side, you can see the summary of their methods and findings and the conclusion. And you can see they put their full conclusion. This is a little bit long for a conclusion. Ideally, it should be less than 2 sentences. It would ideally be 1 sentence. But again, this is a great visual abstract because it has all those elements. So when thinking about creating the visual abstract, you want to really think about making it as short as possible, as I just mentioned. So if you see in the top right-hand side of this slide, it says what this paper adds. Some journals have different prompts that they want you to include in your paper, but this is a great question to ask yourself when creating a visual abstract. So what does this paper add to the literature already out in the field? What didn't you cover in the article that might be of interest to readers? And then the 2 other arrows listed here are, what story do your figures focus on? You might make the visual abstract focus on just one part of your article just because you have a very interesting figure. And finally, looking over on the left-hand side, the methods, results, and conclusion. What are the most important takeaways? This is a lot of text, which is normal for an article, but when you're thinking about the visual abstract, you really want to minimize the amount of text. So you're going to pick out the most important piece. So here are 2 examples, one from an open access journal by Biomed Central and another from a subscription journal, American Journal of Kidney Diseases. These examples are listed here because some journals are publishing them as part of the HTML or actual article itself. So they almost render as figures in the article. So BMC Chemistry had it following their abstract, whereas the American Journal of Kidney Diseases had it at the last page of the article. It's important to know the differences, though. Most journals are using visual abstracts and appending them into the e-only version of the journal. As we've seen, most journals have a much higher readership online, and so really the visual abstracts are to engage with that online readership. So again, this is another example from Kidney International and also some examples from Cell Press. And when you're looking at the graphical abstract or visual abstract that's being published, they're including them in the article and in the article outline. So you can see I highlighted in yellow over on the left-hand side, both articles have an outline. And so readers can instantly click to the visual abstract that was published alongside the article itself. At the bottom of the Cell Press article, you can see that Cell Press recommends making your figures easier for a lay audience to understand or someone that's not in that specific field. So they give a before example and an after example. And it's really taking that, that original figure and translating it into something that's easier to read on that visual abstract. So you can see to the right on the after, they made it so it's a little bit more clear. And that's one of the things that third-party services can help you with, but it's also something that you can think about when you look at your figures. Is there something that will make it easier for others to understand your work? So, where are these being used and shared? Everywhere, really. But one of the key things that we started noticing was that journal clubs are active on Twitter. I right now that's still true, and the journal clubs are usually organized by the social media editor or editor-in-chief of a journal. Publishers can support that. They're also done completely separately from a journal itself, and yet they really want to talk about journal articles, and so they reach out to the editor-in-chief or the social media editor of that journal and discuss a visual abstract. It's just a great way to engage in terms of those live clubs or recorded clubs. And then, of course, conference presentations. Everyone knows, presenting a poster. A lot of people will take that original poster that they've created and translate it into a visual abstract. Remember that sometimes a poster is, obviously it's much larger, but it also has more room. So thinking about how you can take that poster or your presentation and translate it into a more graphical interface. And then LinkedIn, for example, is a great place. This is an example from a journal we publish called Fertility and Sterility. And the nice thing about this is the journal has a template. They want to use their journal colors. So authors are able to download a template, and you can see here they've made it very simple. The graphics look like they're from the Noun Project, and you can clearly see the actual citation data at the bottom of that article.